evening and welcome to India First. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in his last edition of Mann Ki Baat of 2016 on Sunday that demonetization is not the end but just the beginning of the government's fight against corruption, on which there is no question of going back, he once again made the intent of the government clear on fighting corruption and indicated that the drive against black money is a long road ahead on which the government is committed to walk. The Prime Minister pointed out how an incisive law against Benami property will soon become operational 28 years after a Benami property law was promulgated in 1988 but lay dormant for nearly 3 decades because rules had not been framed. With the Prime Minister vowing to win the battle against corruption and black money, tonight we ask, has the government come good on its promise to combat black money, and what more can be done to strengthen the fight against corruption? To discuss that, we are joined by Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, is consulting editor with Business Standard, and Professor Gaurav Vallabh. He is an economist. I welcome you both to India First. I'll begin with you, Shubhamoy. The Prime Minister said in his last edition of Mann Ki Baat of 2016 that demonetization is just the beginning and it's going to be a long road ahead. He said that there will be no full stops in this drive against black money and corruption that the government has embarked upon. Has demonetization so far proven to be a decisive blow to the corrupt?
Demonetization is interesting. It sort of shows that the government is willing to take risks, and for a democratic government, that's a very major thing. Because no really government wants to topple the apple cart so drastically. So demonetization is that way quite a disruptive process. We have discussed this several times. So that is significant. But I take more on board what you're saying, that what next, and I would say the biggest thing now is to go hell for leather for GST. And because we have said that we have built up the momentum with demonetization, the Prime Minister said it's a long road ahead, but we are going to be decisive against corruption. Now, what does that mean? That means that all the irritants that have
physical assets, now the second impact will be on that. And the act which is in force from 1988,
it wasn't enforced for 28 years, that's what the Prime Minister
there was no
out.
case as such. So it means...
Why was it not notified? I mean, that's the basic question that comes to mind.
That's what I'm saying. And now the rigor of the act, now 3-year penalties with 7-year, fair market value of 25% of fair market value penalty, even the confiscation of the property. So what I mean to convey, that this demonetization is one of the steps. If you say that demonetization will eliminate the entire black money problem, no. Because step by step, if I will share, the day that government was formed, SIT was constituted. Then from the foreign accounts, the governments of the foreign countries, the foreign account holders information.
So there have been a series of steps which the government has taken, starting from SIT on black money. We'll come to that. But both of you referred to the Benami Transactions Act that has been passed in August this year, and the Prime Minister has said that Benami transactions would be the next target. You've said that there is a strong case for reduction of stamp duty on real estate. And what can we expect next? Okay, what can we expect next as far as real estate is concerned?
Within real estate, and I would say not just real estate, basically now the big thing that should happen is GST deadline should not be tampered with. That will be fairly a big dampener, because even before demonetization came along, GST was, we knew that this was going to be a big game changer. So to me, I look at that if when the government says that we have done the demonetization, we walked the demonetization road, and say large part of the cash, a good part of the cash has come back in the economy, now the process is on. It's a question of basically printing more money and bringing it back into the system. But like, we have got our handle on the problems and all together. Well, that's it. It's good. And now once that has been done, everybody who's interested in this fight would say that we want to know what the GST roadmap looks like. I'm bringing this up repeatedly because it should not be that, because there's this there's this what I would call the sort of a what I would call a theory that's going around that because of demonetization we can't have GST. It shouldn't be pitched against one against the other, because the benefits of demonetization.
Some political parties have started using demonetization as a bargaining chip.
As a bargaining chip, and that's dangerous because the entire advantage of demonetization could be lost if we push
So
back
what are
on
the
GST.
benefits that are expected to accrue to the economy if stamp duty is reduced on real estate and
only that-
GST is fully integrated?
Yeah, Munmun, what the first thing would happen is that the entire range of tax transactions, so we have demonetization looked at the direct tax. Basically, the measures to go against those who are holding cash was basically the purview of the income tax guys. Well, it's now time for the indirect tax department to be used. And GST is a creature of indirect tax. It's a consumption tax. So that is where the next stage of transactions in trade, and that means both goods and services, should now be open for the public, for the government to take its rightful share, for business to be done in a way that is efficient, and actually making it more efficient is actually very, very pro-poor method, because it actually takes away a lot of cost. So a lot of padding that goes along, unnecessary burden rising, it actually can be set up, can be defeated by GST. You know, one of the scare that we had was that GST would raise prices. Well, demonetization has done one good thing, that's reduce the inflation rate. So now we have got a good platform that, you know, the shock, if there is any, of a slight price rise can actually be
absorbed in part by demonetization. Okay, now there are also many economists who suggest that there should be 100% digitization of all the land records and property records, and all of them should be linked to PAN numbers and Aadhaar numbers. So is that a recommendation that is worth acting upon in order to reduce the play of black money in real estate?
I expect one more thing, that one of the major reason of generation or consumption of black money in real estate sector is the difference between the circle rate and market rates. It is high time that all state governments should reduce this drastically, because in some states the difference is more than 3 times in circle rate and the market rates.
And this will also disincentivize any transactions in black and real estate.
There is a big difference between these things, then naturally the black component comes in. When circle rates in many real estate cases, if circle rates are similar or more or less equivalent to the market rates, you can't put the black money into that transaction, first thing.
That's where the stamp duty comes in.
Second,
and even the capital gains tax, many suggest, should be reduced.
Capital gain tax is something else, because that is more on the possession, and there are a lot of exemptions also by holding the asset for a specified period. No need to pay long-term capital gain taxes on the we are talking about real estate.
Real estate, yes. I'm also talking about real estate.
So the capital gain tax is not much, because there are a lot of exemptions. If I am keeping a property and I am buying a property in lieu of property, so I am using the proceeds of the sale of one property to buy another property. So I am not supposed to pay the long-term capital gain taxes, and a lot of provisions are there under section 54 of the Income Tax Act. But you are talking about the digitization. See, as I'm again and again saying, that GST platform is also on technology. The entire success or failure of GST depends on the IT architecture of the GST. If the transaction enters into the GST, then only we can find out that where the blockage is there and what all transactions which were untaxed earlier are now coming into the system. Similarly, the demonetization, which is yielding the digitization of the transaction from the individual's perspective, that also is going to. So again and again, by technological intervention, the level of black money in the economy is going to drastically reduce.
All right. We have to take at this point in time a short break on India First, but the point that has been made so far is that there is a strong case of reducing, say, stamp duty in real estate, because reports suggest that most of the black money in India is stashed in assets like real estate and gold. And there's also a point that has been made that there is a need for greater digitization, because that will mean that most of the transactions come into the tax net, and thus the black economy is able to shrink further. We'll take a break now and be back with lots more.
आत्मविश्वास की नई ताकत, सहारा इंडिया लाइफ इंश्योरेंस के साथ।
जनवरी 2017 से स्वच्छ सर्वेक्षण शुरू हो रहा है। ऐसे 500 शहरों में जिनकी आबादी 1 लाख से ज्यादा है। शहरों की रैंकिंग होगी, आधार होगा स्वच्छता। 20% नंबर होंगे इस बात के कि आपके घर से जो कचरा इकट्ठा होता है उसका निपटान कैसे होता है। बहुत से शहरों में गीले कचरे से बनती है खाद और सूखे कचरे से बिजली। आपकी म्युनिसिपैलिटी क्या करती है? अपने शहर की सफाई का जिम्मा आपका भी है। कचरे के निपटान से जुड़े 20% नंबर आपके शहर को मिलने ही चाहिए।
4 जनवरी 2017 से सर्वेक्षण का हिस्सा बनिए। कॉल कीजिए टोल फ्री नंबर 1969 पर।
स्वच्छ सर्वेक्षण, एक कदम स्वच्छता की ओर।
मम्मी, आपके पास आधार है और पापा के पास भी, तो फिर मेरे पास क्यों नहीं?
क्योंकि तुम अभी बहुत छोटे हो।
टीचर कह रही थी मेरा भी आधार होना चाहिए और चुटकी का भी।
जी हाँ, नवजात शिशु का भी आधार बन सकता है। इसके लिए आधार केंद्र अथवा स्कूल या फिर आंगनवाड़ी में लगने वाले शिविर में जाएं। ये पूरी तरह से निशुल्क है।
मेरे बच्चे की सही शुरुआत, मेरा आधार मेरी पहचान।
ध्यान रखते हैं हर घड़ी मेरा, और माँ जी प्यार से हाथ बटाती हैं। अगर हर कोई रखता है मेरा इतना ख्याल, तो मैं क्यों न रखूं अपना ध्यान। इसीलिए 9 तारीख को सरकारी अस्पताल जाती हूँ, जहाँ अब सरकारी के संग प्राइवेट डॉक्टर भी आते हैं। प्रधानमंत्री सुरक्षित मातृत्व अभियान के तहत हर महीने की 9 तारीख को सभी सरकारी अस्पतालों में गर्भवती महिलाओं की विशेष सेहत जांच मुफ्त की जाती है, ताकि अगर खतरे के लक्षण हो तो उनका सही समय पर इलाज कर सके। 9 तारीख को मेरा ख्याल सबसे पहले।
खाना रखा है अब्बू, खा लो।
ठीक है फरदीन, 11वीं क्लास में एडमिशन मिल गया?
हाँ जी शुक्रिया। मेरे अब्बू मुझे पढ़ा लिखा कर बड़ा आदमी बनाना चाहते हैं। शुक्र है हमारे इस सपने को पूरा करने के लिए हमें मिल रही है अल्पसंख्यक कार्य मंत्रालय की तरफ से पोस्ट मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप।
अल्पसंख्यक समुदाय के उन स्टूडेंट्स के लिए है जिनकी सालाना पारिवारिक आय 2 लाख रुपए से कम है और जिन्होंने मैट्रिक में 50% अंक प्राप्त किए हैं। और लड़कियों के लिए 30% स्कॉलरशिप निर्धारित है।
मदद हमारी, मंजिल आपकी।
आपकी अघोषित आय की घोषणा लिखेगी एक नई कहानी। पढ़ेगा हर बच्चा शिक्षा की ओर और मिलेगा सबको अन्न हर रोज। साकार होगी हर गरीब की उम्मीद। स्वास्थ्य सेवाएं पाएंगे जरूरतमंद मरीज। सर्दियों में फुटपाथ पर सोने वालों को देगा ये एक छत की गर्माहट। मासूम चेहरों पर लाएगा ये खुशियों की मुस्कुराहट। कराधान और निवेश व्यवस्था के द्वारा प्रधानमंत्री गरीब कल्याण योजना 2016 में निवेश करके निर्धनों की सहायता करें एवं स्वयं को काले धन के बोझ से मुक्त करें। योजना 31 मार्च 2017 तक लागू। इस योजना में अघोषित आय का 25% अनिवार्य रूप से 4 वर्ष के लिए बिना ब्याज जमा कराना होगा तथा अघोषित आय का कुल 49.90% कर, सरचार्ज तथा शास्ती के रूप में भुगतान करना होगा। अधिक जानकारी के लिए आयकर विभाग की वेबसाइट www.incometaxindia.gov.in पर जाएं। आयकर विभाग द्वारा जनहित में जारी।
Welcome back. You're watching India First, and tonight we are asking, has the government come good on its promise to combat black money, and what more steps should be taken in order to further strengthen this fight against black money and corruption? Shubhamoy, another area where black money is stashed in large quantities in India, according to reports, is gold. Some economists like Dr. Pangadia, Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, has suggested that customs duty on gold should be done away with because of very high customs duty there tends to be a lot of smuggling of gold, and once a smuggled gold comes into the market, then it is sold in black. Is that a recommendation worth acting upon? What more should be done to incentivize white transactions in gold?
Sure. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. We in fact, in the period just after liberalization, we had done away with the duty on gold, and it was done by Dr. Manmohan Singh, which is as finance minister, and that was a smart move, because what it did was it immediately took the bottom out of the gold smuggling market. The arbitrage between domestic price of gold and the foreign price of gold, that went off. Now, in 2011, and there were a lot of reasons why it was reimposed, we again went in for a gold duty on gold. Now, the moment we imposed that, it became, given our consistent high appetite for gold, it became extremely comfortable for somebody to try to undercut the gold import regime. So therefore it makes enormous sense to do away with the gold import duty. It gets money, but more than what it gets is what comes in black. So essentially that is a route for a lot of dubious income. So yes, I fully agree that what Dr. Panagaria has said about cutting customs duty on gold. There's no doubt about it.
Besides gold, there is also the issue of funding of political parties. Anonymous donations are allowed up to 20,000 rupees today. As of now, the Election Commission is keen that limit should be reduced to say under 2,000. But some are asking why should there be any anonymous donations at all, and why shouldn't political parties come under the ambit of RTI so that there's 100% transparency in political funding and these political parties are not used as routes for money laundering.
See, as per one of the report, 60% of these political parties had never contested the elections.
The Election Commission has written to CBDT
on this. So that's what. So what is the motivation? Motivation we can understand that motivation when political party you are not contesting election, it means you are doing something else. So first thing is that at least those political parties, there should be a system that if somebody is not contesting election after constituting the party for next 5 years, there should be a delicensing or deregistration of the parties, first thing. Second thing, yes, why I'm saying why 2000? Why not every transaction should have, because we have to go for a mature democracy.
Why not account for every rupee coming to political
because
parties?
Because everybody should be clear, and if somebody is paying something to a political party or if he believes in that particular philosophy, then he can contribute and he can give the money by check or by any legal valid tender. So I think that it's a high time we have to take care, and it has to no need of 2,000 because we are a country of 125 crore people.
So you are saying do away with anonymous donations
So
completely.
Even if 2,000 rupees, if I can say that I received 2,000 rupees from 50 lakh people, then it's a big sum of money.
That's how it works
so
in political
why
parties.
2,000? I'm saying we have to reduce it to zero. And that's what mentioned by Prime Minister in the last Mann Ki Baat.
He said he is for any electoral reform and national interest.
They should be at par, the political parties should be at par with the other organizations. So when something is coming from this particular system, immediately we have to take care. Otherwise, the overall objective of curbing the black money or taking care of the corruption in the system, it will take this bypass route.
Okay. Shubhamoy, the two pegs on which the demonetization drive stands are banking and taxation. We have seen instances of corruption coming to the fore in the banking system. Some banking officials were arrested. Several more are under the scanner, and we see such reports coming out on a daily basis. Is there a need for reforms in the tax and banking administration so that there is greater integrity?
Touching a very difficult topic. The reason for that is, if the idea is that in the course of this black money eradication, if these things are touched upon, and frankly speaking, we actually could forget the main goal. So I would say that is something that's different, should be handled on a separate pedestal altogether.
It shouldn't be work in progress.
Yeah, it should be a work in progress. Now let's look at the banking sector. Banking sector per se, why did these things happen? And in fact, on the very first day, we had talked about the possibility that banking sector could be infiltrated. It's a question of checks and balances. Checks and balances, each bank works under RBI rules, but within them, every bank comes up with its own vigilance mechanism. Now, there was a major report, that was a paper that was issued by NCR some years ago, and it was written by Milind Vaishnav and S. Subtankar, which talked about corruption in public sector organizations, and where it said that over the years, several people in public sector organizations have been identified by their respective vigilance organizations. But that has not reduced the level of corruption in those organizations, primarily because the prosecution of the vigilance has been weak.
Okay.
So people have taken up the problem that yes, we could be identified, those who are corrupt.
But what after that?
So essentially, the problem lies at the governance end rather than at the bank level. Even in taxation or in any other department, if police or any other machinery of the government, I would look at the judiciary. The judicial system now has a very strong role on this entire process. If, for instance, there have been several raids, you have reported on several raids across the country on different people with good stash of money. But it's quite on the cards that many of those raids, the prosecution of it, despite overwhelming evidence, will go on for years. The Ministry of Finance annual report shows that in the year 2014-15, the last completed year for which they have the data, out of 644 cases, only 34 cases could be prosecuted. Now that's a prosecution level of 5%. Now didn't the Income Tax Department try? They tried. But what happens? They get stymied in the courts. So I think there is a very major role that comes of the role of judiciary when we talk of reforms. I think that is where the problems have to be looked at. Every case is not a constitutional case. Why do corruption cases take years together to drag through courts simply because it's so easy to postpone the process? And I think that is where something has to be done.
So quicker prosecution, you are saying, can act as a deterrent,
major
and it's for the judiciary to do some
If we know that the
here.
prosecution will actually come home very fast, then people's incitement, inducement will definitely come down.
All right, I'm afraid that's all the time.
I want
yes,
to add one point on this.
Quickly in one
it's
sentence,
not
please.
quicker. It should be simpler.
Okay.
Because Income Tax Act, I will give you an example, is so complicated that there are a lot of rules which can be played around. So if you are going to have a simpler legislations, then it is going to be quicker.
Absolutely. So you are saying why have grey areas as far as the taxation laws are concerned, and there's also a need perhaps to ensure that the discretionary powers of tax officers are done away with, and perhaps these two things are interlinked, because if there is greater clarity, then there will be less possibility of tax officers trying to strike deals with tax assessees in order to ensure that those tax assessees really get away without paying tax. So the Prime Minister has said that there will be no full stops in the government's drive against black money. The government's track record in the last 2.5 years indicates a zero tolerance approach on corruption so far. But some more steps in the spheres of real estate, gold, banking and tax administration, political funding among others may serve to further strengthen this drive against black money. With that, we conclude this edition of India First. Thanks for watching.